Okay, welcome back to the tutorial. I think I fixed my microphone. I'm not really going to check it, but we're going to get back into creating the level. So we're going to hit F2, right-click on the cube. We're going to make it 1024 by 1024. We'll leave it at 256 for the Z-axis. We're going to hit Control plus A, okay? We're going to hit Q to show our BSP. If you toss down a static mesh into your world, W hides all static meshes, and then Q hides all of your BSP. Remember, the BSP, red thing is the brush, okay? So WQ, don't forget that. Very important. So we're going to make roughly an approximation of what we were working on the last video. Okay, so we're going to adjust our viewports, which again, very important stuff to have. We're going to hit Shift plus 2 to enter geometry edit mode. Now notice, okay, if you look down here, you see that it's trying to adjust the Z-axis and the Y-axis. We don't want that. So we go up here to local and world orientation. Whenever you're modifying geometry, you typically want to be on world orientation, okay? So up here, right, reference coordinate system. So we will just shorten this up. And if you want to get really exact with your grids and make giant grid snaps, you use like 64, for instance, okay? And since we made a 1024 by 1024 times floor that we can set our player to walk on. By the way, if you notice the key that I'm hitting, the backward slash right above your enter key typically, it spawns a little Marcus, at least from my editor. If you don't get that, we'll need to look into the reasons why. But, I mean, you have us on Discord, you can ping us. Point being is, we're going to move on with the tutorial. So we're going to get our walls made. And if you notice, I am, again, selecting the, fuck, what are they called? The edges or vertices? Fuck, I can't remember, guys. Okay, it's a face, but it's a vertice or whatever the fuck. Not an edge. I don't know. I'm lost already, okay? But see, we have a slight problem here with scaling. So if we run into that, we can just divide our grid down into 8, and then we can then go back to scaling our grids. So, yeah, we're just making our level. And this is one method of doing it. You don't have to do it this way, but this typically provides very clean playing environments for, you know, moving and all that stuff. And again, this isn't the best grid work regarding the planes, but on that note, we boxed in our map, okay? And we have loaded in these assets on the left-hand side here in our content browser. So, if you notice, there is an entire directory off to the left here of content browser. Typically, whenever you're making a map, you're going to be pulling from environments. So if we load from cog_flood, you will want to fully load each package. Okay, so again, right-click on the folder, and then fully load. You want to load EBA atoms, right-click, fully load. Cog_0, right-click, fully load. It fully loads the package. If you want to filter out stuff like textures and shit out of it, you can just go up here to object type, right? And then click on static meshes. If you only want textures, mind you, they're separate from materials. Materials are actually what you drag and drop onto things to change the look of a particular object, like this wall here. So you see I've added the like coastal rubble, and then some garbage, and then the default material. So very cool stuff. Now we want to go back and keep the wall the same, like how we had it. So what you can do is that's F4, stack mesh actor, stack mesh component. This is the options menu, or the properties menu, and rendering. You can actually remove that material right here under rendering for materials. This will be important because some models have multiple material assignments based on just the model itself and where materials are. So, useful to know. Things like windows will use multiple materials, or just really big assets will use that, or things with trims, floorboards, whatever. So Point being is that you can undo the material that way, or you can hit Control B on that static mesh, and it'll take you to the root directory of that UPK and to the exact static mesh that you threw down. Okay, so that grid snapping thing I mentioned earlier, that also applies to static meshes, right? So you can drag and drop stuff from the asset browser, like so. Or what you can do is this. You can hold down your Alt key, and you can drag click an object, and it will repeat it. Okay, so Alt plus left click, Alt plus left click. So we have some walls here. Okay, we're just going to delete that. One other thing you can do is you can rotate through, you can cycle through different tools, right? So you can cycle between rotation. Rotation. So you can rotate the X, Y, and Z axis. And again, this is where the whole, this is why I said local and world orientation is important, because you can change the origin axis or whatever it is, and then it changes how rotation is handled and movement throughout the world is handled, right? So we're moving this at some sort of angle, right, on the x-axis. But if you want it true north origin to the world, you can also set it back to world orientation. And so think of it like north, east, southwest, and then your z-axis is right here to control the elevation of that object. So very useful stuff. We're going to go ahead and get rid of that. So you also have the rotation widget, and if you Alt plus click on that, you can do stuff like this, where you rotate based off of the original actor that you're copying from, and do it that way, right? And then there's the scale mode, so you can scale it uniformly, and on the bottom right here, you can actually control scaling values. So we're going to delete that, and we're going to go to this one individually. Let's say along the x-axis, we want the wall to be super long, so 20. All right, pretty cool. So it does scale it. It doesn't scale the texture, though, all that. Only particular materials have scaling based off of I think it's called object. It's object radius bias or something like that is what it's called as a material. So it needs that node in the materials editor, which is something that you have to set up. There's some materials that do have it, but they're a little bit wonky, as they are in Gears 3 vanilla. So that's just what we have, is not some custom material that scales based off of the axis alone. I do have something like that, but I haven't put it out yet because it's not really good or complete, and I haven't touched it in a while, so yeah. Complicated stuff. Up here, right next to local and world, you have non-uniform scaling mode, and you can actually scale with the widget the asset that you want to scale based on the axis. Okay. And yeah. Let me go ahead and close out of Discord. Fucking annoying. Alright. So, there's that. Yeah. So that's how you play static meshes in your level. You can load the entire environments folder. I don't recommend that. It causes a lot of crashes. But, yeah. Moving on. So, if you place a bunch of static meshes in your level, you want to be conscious of player collision, okay? So that way your player does not get caught up on random things in your world. So what we're going to do is we're going to delete this wall, and we're going to go up to here, build geometry. And we have to do that every single time we make a change to the brush, okay? Not a static mesh, but the brush, or anytime you have a blocking volume. And what I'm going to go ahead and do here is hit Control P on this floor, and we can extend this out and keep our level modular in case we need to make a change to our level layout in the future, having a little bit of foresight. And so we're just going to make this extended wall, Control P, push this out as a new wall on its own. It's not super important that you make it one big monolithic wall, because if you want to remove this wall individually, you can. But we're not going to do that. We're going to keep it, okay? So let's say right here, though, let's bring up the floor. Well, we can do that. We can bring it up roughly to that staircase height. And anytime you're making a level for good quality and good collision, what you want to do is you want to hit on your static mesh actors, right? You want to set the collision to typically only block weapons, okay? And this will ensure that you have a perfectly mobile game world that doesn't have any crazy collision issues. And it will also ensure that your cover links are good, because Gears of War is a cover-heavy game, and that's a major part of the gameplay where you're manipulating the cover links to your advantage, whether it's evading shots or confusing your opponent to actually gain a shot on them. So we're going to hit Control plus Shift plus A while selecting one. I'm sorry. We're going to hit. We're going to click on one of these, right-click, select all static mesh actors. Okay, and then under Collision, right here for static mesh actor properties, 9 selected. We're going to go to collide _ block weapons. Okay. And there are multiple types of collision in there. You can turn off all collision for whatever it is. And you see that bullets interact with the surface, but the player can walk straight through it, which is a problem, right? So we have our art-made assets in the world, and this is one method, but you can do, well, hold on. The blocking volumes aren't that great for flood assets because they have a collision issue, but we're going to go do it the right way first, which is probably how it should be done anyway. So again, we're going to hit Shift plus 2. We're going to select the face of this brush right here. And we're going to observe the level geometry regarding the artwork that we've made. And we can push these walls up to where they're partially or mostly on line with this curve here. And the brush, we're going to push it out like such. And this wall, since we don't want to block movement with the artwork, we'll just keep it like this. Actually, you know what? No, because it Z-fights, right? You see this? You want to avoid Z-fighting on your level. It's very distracting, so we'll push it out a little bit. Not the best, but it suits the purpose. Okay. So, on this brush, we're going to go over here. Once we have our brush set up, add volume, and then you're going to right-click on the add volume and blocking volume. Okay. And you'll see here we have this purple thing, or the pinkish thing, and this is a blocking volume. This actually does restrict player movement. And so you want your blocking volumes to be really clean throughout the level, and I'll give you an example of why that should be the case. But point being is we're going to have this other blocking volume over here. And what we're going to do is, our stairs don't have any collision, so we're going to create a blocking volume on this. And that was, hold on, my bad. You can right click, create blocking volume, bounding box. You don't want to do that for everything because, like I said, these flood assets, they don't create a proper blocking volume around your asset. So you want to be careful when you use that option. But luckily for these stairs, they do create a proper blocking volume. Now what we're going to do is extend past this first step a little bit. And then we're going to Alt plus click and get it lined up generally. No, that's not good. So we'll use the extrude tool here. So we're going to hit extrude on the geometry modification. We're going to push it out a little bit so that way it emulates that top staircase. And then under edit mode on geometry tools, so that's again, that's shift +2. We're going to hit these two little squares on the blocking volume and drop them to where it pretty much creates a pretty smooth ramp. And there's a reason as to why we would want to do this. And that reason is because it is much smoother regarding player translation and just networking to move up a smooth ramp than it is jagged staircases. If you play some of the older Gears of War games, you'll notice that, like Epic, they did not fucking put blocking volumes on the stairs for ramps. And even Gears of War Reloaded does this, where they don't use blocking volumes on the stairs. They just use the model's collision, which is not good. Especially for a game that gets sold to people. I mean, that's just fucking pitiful. But yeah. So, we have a smooth ramp here. Now, the reason why grid snapping matters, like huge, is because you can end up with a scenario like this. So let's put this blocking volume here. And then, that's unfortunate. Alright, we're going to make it to where it is slightly, like, we'll make it to where it is 1 pixel, or I'm sorry, 1 grid unit off. Do you see this gap right here? You see the difference here? This little right here, exactly right here? We're going to look at the after effects of what happens if you have a blocking volume like this and why your blocking volume should be perfect every single time. Your player can get caught up on a pixel wide fucking gap like this. Like, it will stop all fucking movement. All. Literally all. Okay, so you don't want any of this nonsense in your levels. You can't have that. So, you want it perfectly lined up. And I think that's perfectly lined up. But that's why you use powers of 2 and you use 8 times grid snap. That's why I do it personally now. I understand a lot of my levels have collision issues and I learned the right way to do it just through making mistakes. But I do ask, I mean, you know, not really a big ask, but I'm giving you the answer that took me fucking forever to get. So, yeah, there it is. I think the rest of it, I mean, you guys can kind of hop in, and if you need a tutorial on one thing, I'll show you how to do it. And I'll walk you guys through the options up here, I guess. So we'll do this. Here's one thing that took me centuries to figure out. I didn't figure it out recently, but... So we made this glass thing right here, right? And any transparent surface, there's a transparent selection, and that will allow you to then select opaque surfaces like water, glass, and other force field effects that are in Gears of War. And you can, of course, change the material, but point being is that's a pretty simple one. Brush polygons is useful. So you see here how my brush selected. You can actually turn that off and it'll just show you this. I like doing this. I like keeping the brush polygons on because when I go to create, like, you know, cover or whatever, let's say for instance I have this wall act as like chest high cover, I can ensure that if I make a blocking volume on it, we'll do this the right way. For starters, 8 grid snap, and then we'll go to, we'll make it a 128 by 128, 256. That's fine, and then we'll adjust it visually based on what we need. I think the player height is like 96 units or something like that, and we see that this is pretty close to what we want. But we're going to hit Shift F2. We're going to snap it, and again, we can do an overhead view because that's the easiest way. That's Alt plus G to get to this view. We noticed that we were on local orientation. So again, world orientation, we want to fix that every single time. Otherwise, you're going to get some crazy behavior out of the editor. So this is pretty good regarding a blocking volume. And so since this is a like chest high, knee high cover, we want the player to be able to mantle over it. And we use our Marcus here as a reference. So we'll move this up a tiny bit just so that it fully covers the player. We're still within the bounds. We're going to right click over here, blocking volume. We have a blocking volume, boom. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and build the level geometry. We're going to jump in game. All right, and notice that we can't take cover on this thing. No, that's because Gears of War's cover system is built in a very particular manner to where you have to manually, as the level creator, place pieces of cover around your level. And so we're going to right click, add actor, and add pylon, okay? Click that. It's going to spawn this little guy here. You're going to hit F4, expansion radius. Just max it out. Type in a bunch of numbers. This is always the same expansion number. Just get that expansion number. That way it builds a full level, okay? We're going to right click, again, add actor, cover link. We're going to hit F4. We're going to move down, and we're going to go to advanced, okay? So I don't know how it shows up for you guys off like by default, but it's the advanced tab. After you hit F4, editor should snap, okay? We're going to go down here in the bottom right and change it to 22.5 degrees. So that way our cover link does this number, all right? Now we're going to go to Alt-G, our overhead view, and we're going to adjust this cover link roughly there. It's on auto adjust now. You can play around with the different settings for cover links. There's a lot. Cover links are very finicky. Again, I'm hitting Alt plus drag to make these cover links pretty quickly. Okay, and then down here, add actor, cover link. Now, you can have some foresight and place another cover link on your map, or you can hit Alt plus drag and just map out like where a bunch of these cover links are going to be, right? Because you don't need to do the same steps that I'm about to show you for every single one of them, but you hit Control plus Shift plus A, F4, once you have all your cover links down, of course. Editor should snap. Editor's going to snap all of these, okay? And so, we're just going to go through, put this on a 180, align this to the blocking volumes that we have down. We don't want player movement to be blocked by this blocking volume, so we're going to delete that. And then corners are a little bit tricky regarding cover links. They sometimes play nice, but it depends on the static mesh that you have down. But yeah, I'm just going to adjust these cover links. And I know the way some of you think I make cover links, like I make them all fucking crazy, like, oh, why would you put a cover link over here, bro? That makes no fucking sense. But the auto adjust system will fuck you over. And even if you have a gray box like I do now, this is just what they call it, it's going to fuck you over in some manner by adjusting itself, because it knows better than you, even though it doesn't. Okay, anyway. Back to the actual tutorial. We're gonna, make this shit. There's some leeway with auto adjust. I found out, some interesting things, like you can actually make them fucking sloppy as fuck, and if you have auto adjust on and it's perfectly BSP, then it'll do it for you. But we're gonna build paths first. Pathfinding is for the pylon. You need pathfinding to actually build the cover nodes. We have cover nodes built now. We're going to jump in game after building those covers. And we see that we can take cover where we told the game we should be able to take cover. And these cover links are in working order. Unless I find a bug on this tiny map. Will I? No telling. But yeah, regarding cover links, blocking volume, and level art, it is up to you to adjust a cover link to not do things like this where there's a huge gap. Like right here. You need to address those huge gaps so the player can get shot where they aren't actually on cover. And ones like these where you just hang out in the open. Even on some of Epic's like official maps that they sold as DLC, they do this. That exact thing I just told you. Nobody remembers because nobody played the DLC maps, but they are there. Believe you me. Alright, so if you're going to add a proper spawn point to your level, since this is mostly multiplayer, it's going to be over here on the asset browser. Actor classes, gear team, player start. You're going to add that. So we have a Locust and a Cog spawn. Alright, Locust is team 1, or I'm sorry, Cog is team 0, Locust is team 1. So if we hop in game, and we set it to game mode under world properties, game type, and then game type for PIE, that's player in editor, the F8 key. Gear game path, and it should swap us between Locust, yep. So your spawns work for team 1 and team 0. On the same menu right here, we're going to go to weapon, gear, weapon pickup factory, and you'll be able to spawn things like weapons, of course. What else would it be? And we're going to hit F8, so we have a boom shot down. Okay, we're going to pick up a boom shot, and we're going to go for an up A, boom, reaction shot. Alright, very cool. So yeah, that's pretty much it for this tutorial. I don't know what else you need, but let me know. I got scared for a second because I thought I didn't record because of that message. Alright.